Hi everyone and welcome back. In this video I'm going to be refinishing this battered old mid-century table by G-Plan, and we'll be featuring a bit of this, quite a bit of this, and this, some of this, and more importantly a little bit of this. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the process, and hopefully you will enjoy the results at the end. There is a little bit of a story behind this table. I have on the front of my house, because I work in a workshop at the bottom of my garden, I have a Mayfield Restorations sign on the front of my house, and one of my neighbours, who I didn't previously know, called round and asked me if I could refinish this table, which was a wedding present that he's had for over 50 years. And he said, I've got some other furniture that you could have, and in payment for the work, which was unusual, and I don't normally take furniture as payment. But I went round, I had a chat with him, we got on really well, and he showed me the piece of furniture, which is in a terrible condition, as this one is. But the one he's given me in payment for this is even worse. And the only reason I took it is because I know you guys will really enjoy the video when I do the restoration of it. So it's not something I've done before, but this is for you guys, and hopefully once that video comes up in the near future, you will really enjoy it. Yeah, first for me, but I was happy with the agreement. This table has had a lot of use over the years, and the first thing I needed to do was give it a thorough cleaning, because it was quite mucky. The other thing I just wanted to mention is when I went to see this table, I couldn't see the entire top because it had a lot of stuff on it, but I could see enough, and I judged how long it'd take me to refinish, and the customer only wanted me to refinish the table top and not the rest of the table. He simply just wanted it to look better than it was and be able to use it for many years to come. Now, when I went to pick up the table, the top was clear and there was a lot of water damage. The water had lifted up the substrate underneath the veneer, which had popped the veneer up, and there was a lot of bubbling on the table. I did explain to the customer that if he wanted a perfect job, then I would have to sand all those areas flat, and that would burn through the existing veneer. So I would have to remove all the veneer and re-veneer the entire top. He didn't want that, so he just wanted it to look a lot better and be able to use it for many years to come. So that's what I'm doing. I just want to set your expectation that ideally I would have liked to get this perfect, but I hope you'll agree at the end of this video it looks a million times better than it currently does. All I'm doing here is I am finding those areas that have been affected by water damage, and those areas have raised up, so the water's got below the veneer into the substrate, which in this case is like a pressed board or a chip board, and it's actually lifted that up. And like I said earlier, the only way to really resolve that is to sand that flat. I do have a little idea, which I'll show you in a second, which sort of worked, but not entirely. So all I'm doing here, just marking up those areas so I don't go too aggressively with the scraper and the sander in the next stage. I thought that I might be able to reduce the size of these water damaged lumps and bumps in the table by using a hot iron on top of a brown paper bag. Now, the brown paper bag is purely there just to avoid scorching the wood, and I thought the weight of the iron and the heat might heat the bump up or dry it out or heat the glue within there, and the weight of me pushing down on it would reduce the size of the bump. Now, I don't know what the science is behind this and whether I was just making things up in my own head, but it actually worked in some areas. The really bad ones, like this one I'm working on now, it reduced it a little bit, but not significantly, and I just had to sort of work around that. But the other ones that weren't as bad as that, it worked really well. I think it might have just been a fluke. I'm sure there's some science behind it, but I just thought I'd give it a go, and it seemed to do the job. Yes, that one's gone. That one, no. Oh, hello. Hello. Never far away, are you? Hey? You bored? Okay. Just let me finish. Let me finish filming this one. No. Okay. A little tip when you're scraping using the carbide scraper, I try not to pull it too far over the edge because it can actually damage the very edge of it and the edge banding along the side. So I use a brand new craft blade, or Stanley blade as we call them in the UK, and just use that like a little mini card scraper, and you can be a bit more controlled and it's nowhere near as aggressive as the carbide scraper. Problem here, the thing just popped off, so I'll show you what I mean. It's because it had bubbled up and it's on the edge, it just popped off. Well, all that didn't pop off, a bit of it did, and I've just tried to smooth it out. I think what I'm going to have to do is put a bit of filler on, because I'm going to stain the table and then I'm going to try and mask it. If I put veneer in, this isn't gonna trim very well because it's chipboard, so it'll be really uneven. Yeah, I'll have to do that. Bloody hell. This bit before you can see that big bit. That's blown through as well a bit. It was really difficult not to do that, so yeah, we'll just have to try and mask that. In fact, that's a bit rough, so I might put a bit of filler in that there. Oh well, it will look better in the end. To start work on the legs, it was just easy to remove them from the table, which was really easy on this table. They were just held on by bolts and wing nuts. As I mentioned at the start of this video, the job here was just to refinish the top and make it look as good as possible. But there was no way I could give this back to the customer with the legs in the condition that they were. I was just going to simply try to sort of clean them and, you know, maybe refinish them with a bit of oil or something like that. But I just thought, these are solid wood. The skirt was solid wood as well. It would look miles better all done. So that's exactly what I did, and yeah, I think that's just my OCD. There's no way I could give it back with the half a job being done. I just needed to smooth off the previous repair I'd done on that blown off veneer, and all I'm using here is some 240 grit sandpaper around a wooden block. Prior to staining, I want to make sure that there is little or no dust left on all the pieces that I've sanded. So all I'm using here is a microfiber cloth and some white spirit, and I'll be using the same method on the tabletop. I'm staining the piece with a penetrating stain by Morel's, and this is in the colour teak. So the thought was that this would originally have been teak, however I wanted it to be a little bit darker because it was in a terrible state, and the few blemishes that I've not been able to get out by sanding and scraping, I'm hoping to be able to mask those slightly with a bit of stain. And like I say, the customer's brief was just make this look better, and hopefully you'll agree at the end that that's exactly what I've done. As I mentioned previously, the legs are solid wood, and I think these were made of something like birch or elm or something like that. And although I used the same coloured stain, the legs took the stain a little bit differently and the colour was a little bit different. So I moved on to plan B, which you'll see in a second. The repair that I did with the wood filler had taken the stain that I'd put on, but unfortunately it had darkened a little bit more than I wanted. So I'm just rubbing some of the stain away in the filled area with some white spirit and then just drying it down with a shop towel. It came out okay. and I'm just using some furniture markers here to try and blend that in with the rest of the table. Now, this is not an invisible repair. This is me doing the best I can do when I know what really needed to be done was for the whole lot of veneer to be replaced. However, as I said earlier, customer didn't want that. He just simply wanted it to look better than it did. And personally, I think it looks a million times better. But you let me know in the comments when you see it at the end. I mentioned that I had a plan B earlier on when I was staining the legs. Once I'd stained the legs because they were solid wood, they looked different than the top, and I just wanted it to try and look as close as possible. So what I'm doing here is I am using a rosewood stain over the top, which gives it a much richer, warmer tone, and that was to try and pull in the look of the legs. Now, once I'd done that, the legs look slightly different, so I went over them very lightly with a bit of the rosewood, and you'll see at the end, it came out as good as I could have hoped for, really, and hopefully you will agree. Before I started the top coat, I noticed there was a couple of little white marks, and I wasn't too sure what these were. And it wasn't the veneer that had burnt through or anything. It wasn't paint. I just guess there was some sort of blemish in the veneer or some sort of oil, or I don't really know what it was. So I just decided to try and mask that a little bit prior to the top coat going on with the furniture markers again. And it doesn't really show that well on the footage here, but it did to my eye. It looked a lot lighter than it actually was, but once I'd added a bit of the marker, it sort of blended away a little bit better. For the finish on the table, I decided to use a clear acrylic lacquer. Now, this lacquer is in a satin finish. When you see me do the tabletop in a second, it doesn't look satin when it goes on wet. It looks very glossy, but it's not. It's a satin finish. And I gave the table, I think, in fact I know, it was 3 coats. And in between each coat, I let it dry. And then I just rub the entire piece over with a brown paper bag, which just takes off any small dust nibs, and then I wipe that down with a tack cloth just to get rid of any of that dust, and then I give it another coat of lacquer. So the only thing to do now is show you the finished product, but before I do, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to all of you that have donated to the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link, the Super Thanks button on the YouTube comments, and my Amazon wish list. You are all so generous, and I do really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel and allows me to make more and more of these videos. If you like this kind of video and you haven't yet subscribed, then please consider subscribing, hit the like button, and share this video with anyone you think might be interested. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you very soon.